Доброго дня, колеги. Вітаю вас.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to welcome you at our third session, where we will discuss best practices of social entrepreneurship under COVID-19. I would like to thank the organizers for this event, and I would like to remind you that you can watch our stream on Facebook and you can find us as well. Let me remind you how we started off in 2020, in spring of 2020. COVID-19 pandemic became quite a challenge for every world, and it was also the challenge to the healthcare system of those countries, so that the citizens could be provided with the timely healthcare. Ukraine, as well as the other countries in the European Union, believes that the human life is in the core of decision-making process, opted for the strategy that was applied in Europe as well, the strategy to counter the COVID-19 pandemic. That's why the Cabinet of Ministers passed a decree to prevent the spread of acute respiratory distress syndrome COVID-19 that is caused by SARS-CoV-2 as of 11th of March, number 211. According to that decree, the quarantine was introduced in the territory of Ukraine, the so-called lockdown. The strict measures were introduced, including the closing of public transports, closing intercity communication, and closing of borders. The mass events became forbidden, and only critical infrastructure facilities were allowed to work, like pharmacies or gas stations. At the same time, the catering and eating out facilities were not allowed to work, and the educational facilities started the remote education process. The entrepreneurs were not sure about the duration of this ban, as at first a 3-week quarantine was announced, and later on it was extended until May 22nd. And after that, the adaptive quarantine was introduced so that each region decides on whether the measures should become more stringent or not. According to Cabinet of Ministers Decree number 46, the regions of Ukraine were now color coded in accordance with the epidemiologic situation and the threat of COVID-19 spread. So we are joined here today by the social entrepreneurs who will tell about their cases, how they survived during COVID-19 pandemic. And today we have Maxim Potapchuk, the founder of Java Social Enterprise, Elena Logvinenko. She is the head of social project to transfer PSR Hearts of Gold. Alina Marnenko, manager and co-founder of Museum in the Dark, 3 a.m. Ivan Kovalyshin, Anna Ponikarchuk, co-founder of Ozero Zero Waste Company, and Ilona Shevchuk, founder of social enterprise Potrib.
Чи все на зв'язку?
Are we all here?
Давайте запитаємо Максима ваш досвід трансформування
Let's ask Maxim about his experience of transforming his business under COVID-19. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maxim Potapchuk. I was born in Donetsk. And at the moment, my social business is functioning in almost all regions of Ukraine. Trava.ua, this is the company that produces tea blends from Transcarpathia and provides also eco-catering. With the beginning of the pandemic, it was hard to adapt right away since one of the elements of our business is herbal tourism and eco catering. By herbal tourism, I mean that we have tourist groups and we go to the Carpathian Mountains together with them so that we could study herbs and plants in mountains. And eco catering means catering without the use of synthetic materials. Given the conditions, our revenues dropped to almost zero, so we've decided to focus on production. We had some residual funds and we also were able to sell our tea blends. Actually, we had the sales of tea blends going up in June. So that is what helped us survive. How did your business model change? And why did it change? You know, our business model didn't change much actually. We started producing new tea blends. So we didn't feel that negative impact as our colleagues did.
Новий продукт, да?
So it means that you came up with a new product. Yes, yes, we started looking for the new product, the new formats of sales. We also decided to focus more on training, and we successfully overcame the peak of the pandemic. Did you use any loan funds or financial facilities? No, no, we didn't use any loans. We didn't borrow any money. We had the funds on our accounts, and that is something that saved us. But I would like to stress that we are a startup company, so we are only breaking even right now. We started making profit quite recently.
Такого успіху.
So, in brief, what's your success formula? We had barter conditions with many of our partners. For instance, the tools or some services are provided to us under barter agreement. And that helped us a lot as well. So you need to look for financial tools and you will need to find the way out and not to wait until the pandemic is over or the crisis is over. Thank you. And what about Olena Logvinenko from Transcription Hearts of Gold project? Is she with us? Good afternoon. Hello, Olena. Good afternoon. I'm from Luhansk myself.
Олена, може, ви від чогось відмовились, чи
Alona, what about you? Did you have to refuse from something, or what measures did you take during the pandemic? We opened our confectionery on the 30th of December 2019 on the eve of New Year. So before coronavirus crisis occurred, we were working only for 3 months, and we haven't actually noticed that something happened and that the startup started making losses because we only started our work. Actually, due to the quarantine, we decided to to test our assortment of the product, and it was not in high demand. So during quarantine, we decided to promote our brand for our confectionery, and we were self-isolating, and we came up with the new brand for our confectionery that is called Purpley. And this is the line for gingerbread cookies and cakes and desserts. So after the total lockdown was over and the measures were relaxed, our desserts were quite in demand. So I believe that for our social enterprise, the quarantine was actually even of benefit because this was the reboot of our activities. We took another look at our project and we have decided to become more business oriented. And one of the part of our project, and I am the mother of a child with autism myself, and we didn't want just to become the self-sufficient business. So we want to hold events for socialization of people with disabilities. And it requires a lot of effort. We have guests from Poltava visiting right now. They are also persons with autism. And our project has a few elements to it. The one is the confectionery, and the other part of our project is to show Ukrainian community the opportunities of people with disabilities. And we want to show that they have their own skills and that they have their own talents. So all social entrepreneurs were trying to cope with this challenge, and they came up with new ideas. You can ask your questions online on our Facebook page. Any other recipe? On my part, I would like to say that it is very important not to be focused only on yourself and not to be too much concerned about your personal profits and financial resources. I believe that we also need to cooperate with the local authorities and we need to take part in the competitions for social projects and get funding at such calls for proposals. And during quarantine, we were able to get funds from the competition in which we won. We were competing with other projects, and thanks to that monetary prize, we were able to pay our rent. So I think that we need to cooperate with the local governments. We need to forge the dialogue since the companies like ours, the social enterprises, they inspire changes and they should be supported by one way or another from the local budget, from the city budget, from the regional budget. And at some point, that would become the backbone for the social enterprise not to close down, since we know that the crisis can come at any moment. But we need to try not to make debts during this kind of times. We have to move on because we are changing lives of people. Thank you. Thank you very much. The rent, yes, paying rent. We all know that even if you close down your business, you have to pay rent.
Следующая у нас Алина идет. Дальше будет
Alina
рассказывать. Вот интересно, как
is
Алина
our
справилась
next speaker. So I was wondering how Alina coped with the rent payment, and she is the co-founder of a museum in the dark 3 a.m. I don't want to talk about rent payment right away. I would like just to tell you a few words about our work. Museum in the Dark, 3 a.m. This is the museum where guided tours are conducted in complete darkness. It means that this is the space that is the recreation of some real sites. For instance, we have something like landscape areas and various objects, and all that is in the darkness. So our visitors are capable of experiencing what it's like not to see anything and have their daily routines. For instance, crossing the street at the traffic light, or attending to their usual business. And you know that helps to conquer the stereotypes that people have with regard to people with disabilities. And you know, many people experience some obstacles in terms of communication, and with this kind of tours, they become more confident in terms of communication. And you know, we do not explain it to them. People are able to change their opinion in a natural way during these guided tours. And another part of our work is the employment for persons with visual impairments. And we have six guides with visual impairments, and we've been working for 3 years. And our experience is offline. So, with the beginning of quarantine, we had some troubles with that. At the beginning of March, we realized that we are not able to have lengthy guided tours. Many museums started offering their products online by having the stream of their exhibitions, but that was not the option for us, because our museum is all about offline experience. So we started brainstorming, and the first thing we did, we decided to streamline our costs. We curtailed everything unnecessary, and we agreed about difference of our rate rent payment. And that is the response to Igor's question. And we knew that we had to pay rent anyway. We agreed about the discount, even though at the very beginning of quarantine, I actually was expecting my landlord to let us not pay the rent for some time, to suspend it. That would make sense, but that didn't happen. And we also curtailed some costs, made some cuts, for instance, mobile phone, internet, some minor expenses, but actually they impacted to quite a substantial amount monthly. And we also had some money in reserve, so we made calculations how long that would suffice us. We had various ideas what to do, and we were able to do anything to get our team working, and to leave until the day when the guided tours would be back. And we came up with two formats. One was quite unexpected for us. That was an online format, something that was a big surprise. Online quests for school children that were guided by our guides with visual impairments. And with those quests, we were helping school children to feel information, and also we got them acquainted with the persons with disabilities. That was a very unusual format, and we were able to extend our target audience. Quite often, we have parents coming with their children to our museums, but children are scared of darkness, and online quests were for children starting from the age of 4, and these kids don't even know that there are people with visual impairments. That is something totally new to them. This is the format that we will continue in the future. So the quarantine actually helped Another format which we launched, that is the guided tour around the city with visually impaired persons. Since it got warmer, we decided to have the guided tours around the city, but not inside the building since it was prohibited. And we continue type of activities in parallel to our main activities. These are the changes that we had during the quarantine. I cannot say that the quarantine had no impact on us, and I cannot say that it was not a negative impact. Well, we were able to come up with some new formats, but still have some debts because of the quarantine, but we were able to survive until reopening. So they were pros and cons in this period of time, but the new formats, that's great. Thank you very much for your story.
То есть никакая не аренда, не зарплата,
So the rent payment, the
никак не
payroll,
смогла повлиять на вас. Надо
it
постоянно
had no
оплачивать вещи,
impact.
и
So
вы
you had
месяц
to make all those payments, right? Well, firstly, we had some money in reserve. I know that many people didn't have that kind of reserve, and I'm this kind of person who wants to be safe. So we had some amounts saved, and it enabled us surviving through first few months, and we knew that we will be able to pay the salaries. And yes, the pay rent, we agreed about the difference of rent payment with our landlord. Our landlord allowed us not to pay all the amount as one installment. We have the debt rescheduling plan, but still it helped us a lot. So the salaries, yes, that's the biggest share in our expenses, but that burden also went down because the workload also went down during the lockdown.
Лина, вы планируете ближайшие там год
Alina, do you have any
два,
plans
вот
in
какие
the
у вас
next year,
стратегии,
2 or 3?
что будет, если все будет плохо, и что
Do you
будет,
have any
если
strategy or
что
plan
будет,
for the best case scenario and worst case scenario? Well, that's quite a good question. Something I forgot to mention. We've been working for 3 years already, and before the quarantine, we were doing quite well. We held over 20,000 guided tours. We were quite confident about our business model. We were able to cover our monthly expenses, and we decided to scale up our activities. So we wanted to open a museum in Lviv, and we even started working on that. So our museum in Lviv was supposed to be opened in autumn. So due to the quarantine, we had to schedule for the next year. And the quarantine actually changed our business model. We now have online format. That's a totally different format. Besides, we have the redistribution of the target audience. As we had big guided tours from schools, and we try to shape a tolerant attitude to people with disabilities. And you know, children were very happy. School children were very happy about these guided tours. And we expect that there will be no big guided tours from school children in the next year to come. So the products that we are advertising currently will be more of the nature I just mentioned. And probably we will get back to the amount of guided tours we had, but that will be the gradual process. And for Lviv Museum, we now scheduled it for June, but our target audience will be slightly adjusted. We have also learned how to work under strict measures and under relaxed measures. And now we have reduced the number of visitors, and we also have different scenarios, for instance, distancing and disinfecting the premises between the groups. But if we have the stringent measures resumed, we will have to opt for the outdoor format, and it has to be cost efficient. It has to cover the rent of the building that is on standby. So we have various scenarios considered, and I hope that these stringent measures will not last long. That is why we have the strategy for each of these options.
Раз у нас Максим сегодня в формате оффлайн, мы у него тоже спросим, есть ли у вас
Well, as we
планы
have Maxim
дальнейшие.
physically with us now, I'd like to ask him if there are plans for Travaille. Yeah, for sure. We have increased our production 20%. We increased our product line, adding 7 more products. We have totally redid our brand book, introduced more environmentally user-friendly packaging. Next year, we plan to provide more coverage to children in the scope of our uh, charity projects, and we plan to spend more funds on further development of children's culture and education, particularly in the east of Ukraine. We're able to provide our young customers with safety masks, gloves. Next year, plans include boosting production up 25%. Uh, I would really hesitate whistling up ambitious numbers for the coming year, given the situation. But still, we have an objective of reaching for the European markets in 2025, and we plan to be quite ready to fit into their rules for that.
Дякую, Аліна.
Uh,
І
thank you,
наразі
Alina.
переходимо до Валентина Вишина.
And
Розкажіть,
it's
пане
time
Валентине,
to
до речі, чи він є
come
зараз на
for
зв'язку?
Ivan Kovalich, founder of the Dorechi
А до вас
organization.
буде питання, що було до
Отрасль
коронавірусу
апропо.
і що стало після?
So, question:
Що вплинуло?
how did you fare before the coronavirus, and what is it like now? Before that, we had a good development prospects, and the pandemics made us review our plans. As Irina mentioned, there have been some positive and negative things happening, but that ultimately allowed us to really review what we have been doing. Our social enterprise works with second-hand clothing. We have collection boxes stationed across the city. Some of these are being sold, others distributed to needy groups. So about 50% goes to processing. And just about up to 10% is ready for being resold. The remainder distributed among the needy groups. Before the corona, we had about 8 staff. The majority representatives of target audience. The whole story actually began with us looking to find clothing for homeless persons. And then we decided that we could engage these guys in some socially meaningful working activity, which might also help them as well. So before the coronavirus, We had uh, 8 staff members. Two of us, me included, were like ordinary people. Six more from the homelessness. We had a small storage facility, like 80 square meters, and we had a single car to work with it. We had to borrow from some fraternal organizations to do it. And when the coronavirus came, we had to review our situation because at some point we were in a heavy lockdown, and the Bukovina region, Chernivtsi were definitely the worst affected. So some first months were the most painful for us because we were really afraid whether we will survive. We did have some safety cushion, and we used it. Uh, we also negotiated certain rental discounts from property owners to make it easier for us. Uh, Target group representatives who work for us, they were with us for some months, and we really created the idea of less and less to pay them with. So we had to rethink some of our processes, like sorting the clothing, logistics, transportation things. We tried moving into online trade. Uh, Sadly, it didn't alleviate anything for us, didn't do anything uh, for us. We had to review our expenditure side, particularly wages. We reduced the wages a bit to 70-80%, as well as had to trim other processes. But again, thanks for us having that safety cushion, we were able to survive through the harshest period in the quarantine. Uh, so actually, such a situation definitely spells the need to review business approaches inside the company. Definitely, you need to think of business components in your social enterprise because, again, without business, we won't have that safety cushion, this extra reserve fund, if you want, and we would not survive. So we are more looking for a viable business model for us to progress without really in the social component. We reduced a bit our staff membership from the target audience. At the moment, we have 7 staff. Some key positions remain with us because they do understand that we need to keep some key positions intact to manage the whole thing. We also tried to look for alternative ways of distributing that clothing stuff. Uh, we used to do it through some shops. The quarantine stopped us from that, but we have to continue paying rental for it. We had to again review and we cut on our operational costs, expenditures. We did rethink of our strategy of sales on clothing, on footwear. checking which items could go at higher prices, which should go at socially acceptable one, just a couple of dollars per item. For the most part, we sell clothing at socially acceptable prices, like a couple of dozens of hryvnias if you want, but there are also some items that we sell a bit higher than that. So quarantine is sort of beneficial for us because we were able to review our sales strategy, our expenditure side. We understood how important it is to focus more on business aspects. That's it.
Яка, на вашу думку, сума потрібна для
Uh, Thank you. Uh, what size should this reserve fund be in your view? Well, it surely depends. But again, as Alina said also about it, when we were in this period of the harshest lockdown, when you can't make any move at all, yet you need to retain your people, you have to pay wages. So for Chernivtsi, we had to pay like 6 to 7 thousand hryvnias a person per head, monthly basis. So think roughly of 50,000 hryvnias a month. It's a given. Adds here like about 100, 10,000 hryvnias of rental payments again monthly. So you can come to our estimate of this.
запас потрібно
They say generally that you need to have at least
до
3 months
зараз
worth of
організація
income to be able to
як Zero Waste
swim through that
і
period.
компанія Озеро,
Okay, thank you.
вони
Let's switch to Ozera Company
і який вплив
to listen to representative of the company, Anna Ponikarchuk, to hear how they fared throughout the quarantine. Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yep. I'm Anna Ponikarchuk, co-founder and operations director of O0 Company. We have three major lines of activity. First is zero waste brick and mortar and online shops where we sell uh, eco-friendly certified products. We actually communicate with our suppliers to see that the raw materials used for their productions are sourced from really green suppliers. Then we have zero waste consultant for businesses, where we advise companies, enterprises. We advise them how to reduce their waste, how to save and optimize uh, their expenditures, and how to optimize their resources. It's very important for companies these days. And zero waste education and learning. The third line of activity, a variety of consultations and again trainings for businesses, for commercial users, like how to reduce waste and become more environmentally friendly, become greener. The team is rather compact. We have just five staff. We are 3 years old. The whole quarantine period was of great interest for us because we have always dreamed of having a space of our very own. We used to rent out premises about 40 square meters, and it was quite cramped for us. We wanted to have more to allow for trainings, events, etc. And just a couple of days before the introduction of quarantine, we signed a rental contract for 140 square meter big premises in the central portion of Kiev. It wasn't easy for us, but our new uh, leaseholder assisted us. And in terms of our what we do and our view of it, on one hand, yes, toothbrush made of bamboo is not enough when it's a question of survival, of sanitation, masks, etc. Then we decided that it's a very nice niche because masks tend to be changed. It creates lots of waste. From here, we went to the idea of composting bins to help people sort out different sorts of waste. We focused on quality uh, green soap made from plants. We have a nice supplier from Viv. So we try to convey the message that stay cool, guys. We are with you. Everything will check okay. Just don't forget to sanitize your hands properly using our environmentally friendly and completely natural soap. We enjoyed an incredible support from everyone. We, even our colleagues, like Olesia Bogoraz, they helped us by launching a slogan like "Buy from the smaller fry" to support smaller businesses as opposed to bigger monsters. And we felt ourselves part and parcel of this rather small but neatly organized ecosystem, small companies, and we have been supporting each other throughout the quarantine. We plan to continue it further on. So I think for us, quarantine was the start of a bigger discussion about environmental responsibility, going greener, how everyone's decisions matter here when you opt for reusable packaging, where you try to source your foodstuffs from responsible suppliers. We had lots of online events to keep in touch with our audiences, to be able to discuss important topics. We had lots of small videos posted online on waste management, on minimalism, etc., etc., etc. So I also have answers to two questions, but you may want to put more questions to me. I'm ready to actually answer.
Погано чути, але розповісти про свої кейси, як ви справились з таким моментом, как COVID. Что же...
Could you please tell more, maybe, about your experience of living through the COVID time? One of the important targets for us objectives was to retain the staff without reducing their wages. We valued our team, we value them, we wanted to keep it as a family. For that purpose, some of us decided to let go of our salaries just for the sake of keeping the whole the team. Like me myself, I didn't get any salary for a couple of months for that purpose. Actually, we have a practice of reviewing wages and salaries on a quarterly basis. Definitely, we want people to have competitive salaries. So we try to look into how to maintain financial our people. Have you got reserve fund? Just a minimum one, because for most part we reinvest our profits in business expansion. And well, Ivan was right actually, the one who spoke before me, that you need to think about a business model first and for all. This is really important. On the other hand, it brings sheer joy for everyone, to everyone doing it, because it creates the freedom to bring changes into the country. And really, thinking of business model is necessary if you want your project to persist, if you want your company to stay afloat. Yes, initially we thought of ourselves as an environmental project without caring too much about such business matters or business models. Now, I would definitely say if you are to start a social enterprise, think of yourself as a business entity and be very clear about it. You should also think about problems that chime in with others. You can think of a very important social problem, but if there is no echo in the public to it, you will fail. It's not enough to think that you're inspired by something. Check for feedbacks. Also, some businesses, social businesses, I mean, they try to not register. They try to be shy of that official recognition. My idea is go official, just go official. It's so much easier when you can properly report before the government, before others. You can get clean, be bold, and uh, this is my share and very heartfelt advice from the very beginning. Become official. We have lots of customers who still continue buying from us, communicating with us. And we've finally inaugurated our own space in the midtown of Kiev. We have even a cafe there, and you can go there. We spent definitely more than 2 months. We initially expected to refurbish the space, and couple of months still to go to finalize this refurbishment. But partly it is already ready, and you are completely welcome. Uh, Thank you, Anna. Fortunately, your time is up because we still want to hear from another colleague uh, from Potrib. Hi, I'm Ilona, and our enterprise does with the byproducts of furniture production and use banner materials. We, we, we are rather informal in our business setting, so just don't be afraid if you see someone running in the background or some strange sounds because we have just a bunch of very funny enthusiasts. Still, we at some point we came to a conclusion about what is actually our objective, what we want to do. We had a training on social enterprise, and in a shorter time, we came up with the ideas of our early products, like the bags and purses that we had first on offer. We wanted to expand further, but then the quarantine time came. So at some point, our workshop was on the brink of complete stop, to the point when our chief manufacturer of this upcycled product said that probably she would go back home until the quarantine is lifted. Well, at the moment, we really go through hard times and we try to keep in touch. We try to work online. Uh, we provide discounts to our customers. We do it in the form of like coupons. So those willing to use or to buy our products, they can get coupons with discount coupons, like to pay it forward. That way, they enable us to pay for our for space rental, like some necessary upkeep. The leaseholder was kind enough to freeze the payments for us. Like a surprise for us. And again, these online orders with discounts allowed us to collect some funds to pay for 2 months of existence of our workshop. Actually, it's a bit stressful to be like this because we were fresh and green when we started, only to have this quarantine slept on us in a couple of months. But anyway, it was a good lesson, and it's nice to see that quarantine measures are being relieved on a daily basis. And actually, last Saturday, we were able to get the sewing machine that we dreamed about for quite some time, and we were given a flat interest loan for that.
Дякую, Луна. Дякую, дякую. Для нас
Okay,
це
thank
мало
you.
часу, тож
We are abysmally short on time, but thank you for your case, for your experience, because they provide
технічні рішення були
really
придумані для того, щоб вийти із
warming and
кризису.
positive
А
experiences
зараз
for
я
us,
передаю
for those dreaming
слово
about
Наталі,
the
яка
end of quarantine.
підготувала ще нові сюрпризи
And
для
it's time to really hear
запрошених
more from Natalia
до вас.
with more surprises to participants.
Ну, розігрувати. Мені здається, це набір чаїв на півроку. Поруч зі мною стоїть Максим. Максим, власне, фаундер, кофаундер. Поруч зі мною стоїть Максим. Максим власник бренду соціального підприємства, яке називається Максиме, розкажи, будь ласка, про твій продукт, про
Отже, дороге товариство, вітаю вас. Покажемо вам чаї. Збираємо ми трави, ягоди виключно в Карпатах на верховині. І сьогодні вирішили зробити вам подаруночки. У нас є чаї ранкові, є денні, є вечірні. Обирайте.
Так,
І
у
сьогодні,
мене
до
є
речі,
одне
у нас
питання.
є ранковий чай, денний і денний.
Так, на них написано карпатський енергетик і ромашка психологиня. Що з них ранкове, що з них денне і коли це пити?
Енергетик ранковий чай, ромашка
це зранку.
психологиня, бажано її вживати після 12-ї години
Ночі? Дня, після 12-го дня. Але в мене є ще одне питання. На чай, який називається карпатський, вгорі написано, що він щось там про любов було.
Так,
сприяє міцному коханню.
так.
А можна детальніше про це? Як у нас чай сприяє коханню?
Це перевірено вже роками, це ще рецепт мого дідо, сприяє коханню. Тобто я бачу це і на власному досвіді, і на досвіді своїх колег,
якщо ти маєш
клієнтів.
таку симпатію, так, ти запрошуєш на чай?
Потрібно, коли йдеш на побачення, купити у нас пакуночок чаю, прийти до своєї коханої або до коханого, і за чаюванням, приємно спілкуючись, все більше закохуватися одне в одного. Тобто це перевірено. Якщо що, рецепт можу надіслати в особисті, звертайтеся, Instagram, Facebook, Трава.ua.
І ще одне питання: наскільки вистачить ці 5 коробочок з чаю? Це, здається, на рік набір?
Ні. Тут у нас 20 чашок, тут у нас приблизно 15 чашок по 300 мг.
Так, 20, 20, 20 – це 60, і 15, 15 – 90. 90 чашок – це наскільки? На місяць?
Можна на місяць, так.
Десь на місяць.
Ну, якщо ви бажаєте ще більше такого палкого кохання, то
І дзена.
на півмісяці. Тобто, уявіть собі, кохання всього-навсього за 60 гривень. Оцей чай 60 гривень, цей 70.
Зрозуміло, у нас
можна,
тут вже прийшла ярмарка товарів.
Можна більш дешеве кохання влаштувати, можна на 10 гривень дорожче кохання влаштувати.
Отакі вони чоловіки. Але
Так.
сьогодні ми даруємо вам це кохання просто безкоштовно за ваші правильні відповіді. Отож, наше питання. Відгадайте загадку таку. Перший раз цвіла, жовтою була. Як дозріла, побіліла, схопилася, полетіла, знову десь рости, й жовто зацвісти. Про що йде мова? Про яку, зробимо підказку, про яку рослинку йде мова? Правильну відповідь на це питання ви залишаєте у нашій події, яка називається Міжнародна конференція УФБ Social Business in UA, під постом про цей розіграш. Серед тих людей, які назвуть правильну відповідь, ми розіграємо за допомогою рандомайзера ось такий місячний набір чаю, кохання, релаксу і взагалі гарного настрою для когось
А
із
я
вас.
ще можу на додаток вірші про кохання надіслати.
І вірші про кохання, поезію. І 3 поезії про
3
кохання на додаток від власника бренду. Отож, друзі, я на цьому кажу вам па-па, була дуже рада з вами сьогодні бути разом, дарувати вам подарунки. Нагадую, що до 16:30 ви можете залишати свої правильні відповіді у нашій події під постами про розіграш. Після 16:30 ми займемося тим, що знайдемо людей, які правильно відповіли, і розіграємо серед них. І мій колега о 17:00, а можливо трошки пізніше, оголосить переможців. Отож, не перемикайтесь жодним чином, залишайтесь тут і давайте відповіді на питання. Можу сказати, що майже всі призи, окрім чаю, ми вже, скажімо так, маємо кілька правильних відповідей. Окрім одного лоту, це наша сумка-бананка від наших друзів соціального підприємства «Рібен». Для того, аби виграти цю сумку, поясну сумку, вам потрібно відповісти на питання, скільки років потрібно рекламному банеру для того, аби повністю розложитися, так, повністю зникнути у ґрунті, для того, аби стати ґрунтом. Отож, скільки років? Дам підказочку, більше, ніж 800. Точна цифра більше, ніж 800. Той, хто перший дасть правильну відповідь, той і отримує цю поясну сумку. Класна сумка, можна носити збоку, можна на поясі, можна через це тіло, як завгодно. Отож, нагадую, у нас є 2 питання, не перебивайте мене, у нас є 2 питання ще не закритих. Про чай, так, пам'ятаємо загадку, і також про сумку. Основне питання про сумку – скільки потрібно часу для того, аби повністю розчинилася банерна тканина у ґрунті. На цьому у мене все. Хочете щось додати?
Так, до речі, в цю торбочку вміститься наша лаванда.
Вміститься і лаванда, і чай, і варення поміститься в цю торбочку.
Так.
І також наш спрей з кедру, який дарує вам повний спокій, а також допоможуть вам позбутися нежиті і першіння в горлі. Всі подарунки важливі, всі класні, у кожного є якийсь свій класний додатковий соціальний профіт. Отож, залишайте відповіді на наші питання у нашій події, яка називається Міжнародна конференція УФБ Social Business in UA. На цьому я з вами прощаюсь. Рада була сьогодні дарувати вам подарунки. Чекаю на переможців і теж сама буду брати участь у розіграші. Рада була познайомитися. Дуже приємно. Передаю слово колегам, пірнаємо далі у наші знання. Ну, а я прощаємось з вами. Па-па.
Па-па.
Доброго дня, шановні наші глядачі, учасники.
Good afternoon, our viewers and participants. We would like to welcome you at the session, which is called Social Entrepreneurship, where the world and Ukraine are moving. And today we will speak about the things that are happening in social entrepreneurship in Ukraine, in Europe, and worldwide. How social entrepreneurship is being developed, where is it headed, and what are the prospects for social entrepreneurship, and what are the areas with the highest potential. And now I would like to introduce our panelists who have joined us here on stage and those who have joined us online as well. So I am joined here by the following participants and experts. This is Petro Darmari sitting right next to me. He is the executive director of Ukrainian Social Academy. Probably you all know him. To my left is Svetlana Pinchuk. Svetlana Pinchuk is an impact analyst and she works at Social Entrepreneurship Forum that is based in Sweden. And you can also see Artem Kornetsky over here. He is a PhD. He is an associate professor in Ukrainian Catholic University, and he is also the co-founder of School of Me Social Enterprise. And we also have some online panelists who have joined us. Probably we will be able to see them all on the screen. So we are joined here today by Alona Kalibaba. She is the CEO of Chosopus, and she's a co-founder of C-Lab. We are also joined by Vitaly Bokhnyak, who is the business development lead, and he is from Promise Project, International Technical Aid Project. And we also have our foreign guests who have joined, including Mr. Karl van der Porten, who is the policymaker in social economy. Який має коротку
назву.
The European Commission. This is the Director General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship, and SMEs. And this is the Director General for European Commission. And we are also joined online by Anne Nolan. Anne Nolan is the integration program lead at an NGO that works in Ireland and is called Waterford Integration Services. And before we get down to the business and discuss the topic we have for today, I would like to say a few words to our international participants in terms of administrative issues.
Below the Zoom screen, you have the globe sign. The globe sign with this with the writing to translate or translate something like this. If you want to hear us, Ukrainian speakers, if you want to hear us in English, just press this button, okay, on your Zoom where the globe is, and you immediately would hear the English language translation of the discussions which are held here. Okay, so did you understand? Do you understand me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this was the message from organizers. Yeah, that they asked. Okay. Thank you. Just to ensure that you are with us and you hear us and you hear all the translation and all the questions raised and discussions. Thank you very much. Yeah. І нагадаю для всіх наших учасників.
And I would like to remind all our online viewers, you can watch us not only on Facebook and not only uh, on yeah, not only on in Facebook. You can also watch us on YouTube, and you can even ask your questions. So just write a brief question, and before you send your question, just don't forget to put in the number of the section and the last name of speaker you would like to address your question to. So, question number one, which I would like to raise, and it is addressed to all the panelists. This is the question that is of high relevance, and we've been discussing it over all day long today. And some of our speakers already expressed their opinion on it. But we are wondering about the following. We are facing the situation of constant challenges. The environment is shifting all the time. The economic conditions are changing. The pandemic is still continuing. We do not know what to expect next, and clearly we need to be prepared. So, if you were to voice three or four biggest challenges for the social enterprises that exist at the moment in Ukraine, in Europe, worldwide, the issues, the challenges that are the biggest for the social enterprises, the challenges they have to tackle in order to survive, in order to keep afloat, and in order to continue their business. So, who would like to be the first?
First one, Carol.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me again, also for this panel. Why I would like to start first is because just 1 or 2 hours ago, we have published on our website a study on digital opportunities and barriers for the social economy and social enterprises, and how digital tools can be used for scaling their business process. So I think this is, I hear myself a bit double. Okay. There is like an echo in.
Карл
Can,
каже, що
shall I? No, it's not solved yet.
just a moment. Yes, they are
No
trying to
problem.
address. Can you go on? Yeah, just with your answer.
Okay, I can try again. Okay, perfect. That works well. So to come back, no, the echo is there again. Or shall I just continue?
Okay, yeah, because here it's okay, so no echo here. Okay,
Okay,
maybe just
okay.
it's your
Um,
sound over there.
Okay, then I will just continue. So the European Commission just published a study specifically to investigate the opportunities, but also the barriers for social enterprises and their uptake of digital technologies. This is quite on the right moment, because if something has learned us during the COVID-19 crisis, is that not only social enterprise, but many businesses suddenly had to shift their whole business model from a physical business to somehow partly or completely entire online presence. But they didn't really know how to do. Some were already digital innovators, had all the tools, were very profound in this, but others had no clue, just like many other businesses. So therefore, we also wanted to help them to see what kind of tools might be available. And just to give you one example, there is a whole no-code community, which means a community that want to promote digital tools where you don't need to have coding skills for. So basically, everybody can learn it with a bit of self-study. You can create your own website without needing to have the skills to do the coding in the background. There are many applications, software plugins, etc., that you can use, and many social entrepreneurs use such no-code technology or no-code software to have just a basic identity, a basic interface. And I think this is really something that might empower social businesses in general, but also a lot of SMEs that have no digital presence yet. I just give you this small example because the digital future of our economy will be incredibly important in the recovery. This is a big challenge, but there are so many opportunities to make things more efficient, to reach out, to scale your business. Also, for example, for inclusion of people with a distance to the labor market, people with disabilities. We see beautiful, very easygoing use of language technology, for example, but also even very high-end technology like robots to assist people with disability, and so on and so further. So these tools might be ideal to support social enterprises in their daily business. So there is a huge, huge opportunity from the very basic, like I said, no-code software tools to the very advanced blockchain technology, IoT, etc. I think the digital one will be definitely a key, but maybe we come later back to me for some other ones. But this is the first one from my side. Thank you.
Дякуємо дуже, пане Карл, за ґрунтовну, таке
Thank you,
ґрунтовну
Carl, very much for your in-depth answers. Thank you for mentioning not only the challenges, but also the ways to overcome those challenges. Thank you for that. And now I would like to pass on to our other panelists who would like to answer the question what are the biggest challenges under this shifting conditions, pandemic, COVID?
До слова запрошується
So I would like to give the floor to Petro Darmaris,
Української соціальної академії.
who is the executive director of Ukrainian Social Academy. Hi everyone. Actually, to speak on the topic, and I know that we are pressed for time, so I'll try to be as concise as possible. So while answering this question, I would like to make a reference to two recent studies we conducted in Ukraine. The first one was with the biggest global network for social entrepreneurship worldwide, Ashoka, and the results of this research were available in May already, when we had the crisis rampaging, and that was the study that was dedicated to the ecosystem of social entrepreneurship and social innovations in general. And the other research that we had in our academy, yeah, conducted in June, that was the research in the impact of COVID crisis on social enterprises in Ukraine, and we have conducted 50 in-depth interviews with social and entrepreneurs who have been working in Ukraine for over 2 years. So we were asking about their business, and those were the entrepreneurs who already had logistic chains and who had well-oiled businesses and connections. So the biggest challenge for them was the retention of employees, since the turnovers went down and the sales went down, and the biggest pain for them was to make a choice either to cut salaries or to make their employees redundant. And of course, sources of financing were difficult, and the most recent need is providing access to financial opportunities. And we are not talking about 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 US dollars. We are talking about investment funds that would help them recover and reshape, reconfigure their social enterprises. In that regard, what is also of interest is the response to the answer what was the biggest uniting factor that prevented you from closing down. And the the most popular answer was the motivation, the social mission, and also the charismatic features of their leader, and financial motivation came third. And I don't want to speak only about the challenges. I also want to express the wishes that entrepreneurs have. They said that they would like to have more opportunities for having dialogue with the other uh, players on the market, and also to have more discussions about the access to financial resources. And this has to be the dialogue so that the initiatives for social enterprises were not created without the participation of social entrepreneurs themselves, meaning that the private public partnership could come handy. And the last but not the least, in this regard, is the matter of cooperation itself and collaboration. Quite often, Ukrainian enterprises are either micro or small businesses, and quite often, 30% of our respondents were from urban areas, and they were purely local. They didn't have any branch offices elsewhere. So it means that the past survivors were the ones who had the support of their network, the ones who were able to adjust quickly and find new suppliers, among other things. 10% of the respondents said that they had to close down their businesses completely, and out of those who either closed down or had a substantial drop in revenue, had a very small number of stakeholders or working on their own. So the um, tip to the entrepreneurs, you need to have the network, and also they need to have free access to finances. That would be a bigger amount than microgrant. Thank you. Thank you, Petra. You know, this kind of um, studies and researches are very helpful in terms of understanding Ukrainian reality and the state of affairs of social entrepreneurship in our country. Thank you. And now I would like to pass on to Svetlana, who is an impact analyst from Social Entrepreneurship Forum based in Sweden. And Svetlana, we are very much wondering what is your opinion. Thank you very much, Natalia. No, thank you very much, Oksana. I am very happy to be here, and I'm very happy that this important discussion is taking place. And I will gladly share my experience. I work for the organization that is based in Sweden, the Forum of Social Entrepreneurship, and among the challenges, I should say that I agree pretty much with Petro, but actually there are even more challenges and they are very diverse and multifaceted. Let me start with the partnership. This is the area we are focusing on in our organization. We are running researches on what are the successful models for social enterprises, the partnership with the other players on the market. And the social enterprises sometimes cooperate with the local governments, with municipalities. We know about these examples, but in Sweden, and maybe that is the case in Ukraine, the cases of cooperation between businesses and social businesses and conventional businesses are quite rare. Recently, we published the results of the research, and we hope that that publication would become of an inspiration to many social entrepreneurs. This will be useful in terms of building relations with conventional business people and how you could help them when they have some corporate social responsibility projects, and also it could help in terms of creating a long-term cooperation that could be lasting for quite a while, and that would provide for the attainment of the social enterprise goals, but the business goals for conventional businesses as well. That will be mutually beneficial. And that is the partnership that is based on the mutual interests. And you can find the cases in that study. It is available on our website, Social Entrepreneurship Forum. Unfortunately, it's only available in English, and the translation is Ukrainian translation is underway. Supporting the business, you can find some examples in that study. And you know, in the time of crisis, we know that the revenues decrease, and this kind of partnership could be very helpful because this is not just the one-way street. And one more thing to mention with regard to challenges that is not that often mentioned, but is of no less importance. That is the professional burnout and even depression of the founders or leaders of social enterprises. For instance, last year, World Economic Forum held the survey among social entrepreneurs, and more than half of them mentioned that they experienced burnout in their professional activities due to high requirements and due to difficult conditions of work. And quite often they are not that well perceived by the society. Not everyone understands what they are doing. So some awareness raising is also part of the activities, and that is a task that is very difficult, and all that burden is on the shoulders of their founders and leaders of social enterprises. So they try to take best approaches from conventional businesses, being goal oriented, and they want to be efficient in their work, and they take the best from the civil society sector, the social impact, work with the community, and work on difficult conditions. So when you combine these two approaches, these two tasks, that creates a high pressure and a high burnout level, high burnout rates among social entrepreneurs. And we wish there were more understanding on the part of donors who are announcing calls for proposals. And sometimes for startups, they have the principles fail fast and fail often, so that you could find a proper solution as quick as possible. And that is very useful for the innovations. But for the social entrepreneurs, the requirements are not the same. When they receive grant funds, they have to report about the use of these funds right away, and they do not have an opportunity to give it a try and to fail. So, that is like the set of factors that is the deterrent. And quite often, due to this professional burnout, the entrepreneurs become disappointed. And I think that that is something we would like to work on. And those who want to support social enterprise in Ukraine should also work on that. Thank you for bringing it up. The mental health is something that is very high on the agenda on the pandemic. And yes, this is something that is often overlooked by the financiers and by donors and supporters. Many members of the community had sustained some problems with regard to the mental pressure, but that was not expressed widely. And thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for giving evidence and telling that there are studies on the topic. Petra also mentioned that in Ukraine there is also the need of what you've mentioned, and thank you for mentioning the European experience. And I'm sure that Carl, when he was talking about his experience and he's in charge of cooperation between businesses and social entrepreneurs and networking. I'm sure he has something to say on the topic, but now I would like to pass on to Artem, who wants to share his view in terms of the current challenges the entrepreneurs face. How are they supposed to overcome those challenges? And maybe Artem will share some tips and tricks. Hello, I would like to thank my colleagues for the comments. And
Дві складові. Складова
to
перша
that
стосується
question, I would give my answer in few parts. So, with regard to business, social entrepreneurship is actually different from conventional businesses. And as Petra mentioned, mostly those are small enterprises. And the challenges the small businesses are facing at the moment are the same the social enterprises are facing at the moment. So, commenting on that question, I would like to say that we should pay attention to the sector the company works in. For instance, if that's some catering, or if that was the company that was engaged in restaurant business, they need to learn how to deliver their products online by placing online orders. Well, you all know that we have to adapt, but with social entrepreneurship, there is a twist to it. I've been working on this topic for 6 years already in the US and in Ukraine as well. And I see that they're all about the challenge. They have everything and all kinds of challenges. We cannot say that everything works great for social entrepreneurs somewhere. No, I just believe that we should not focus on the negative sides. The more social issues we have, the more work social enterprises have because they need to solve the issues, the social issues. So, if we take a look at the pandemic from the point of view of social business, this is an opportunity to solve the problem with a new method. Researchers, well, they are not that numerous in Ukraine. We have cases, we have interviews, we've held with the entrepreneurs. Yes, they all say that it's the time of turbulence. And one more thing to mention about the crisis. The crisis speeds up the processes. So if you had an organization, a social business that had some difficulties, then these difficulties are much quicker pronounced. And yes, many enterprises close down right now, but maybe that's better because you see what was wrong with your business right away. So if social enterprises find an opportunity how to work under the current conditions and how they can be efficient right now, can you imagine how successful they will be when the crisis is over? So I think that's something we could focus on. I don't want to be totally negative about COVID. So I think that this kind of acceleration is not always the negative impact. But with regard to support of social enterprises, I see that there is the new wave of funding that emerged because of COVID. And we have an opportunity to become better. We can start social business And I believe that in Ukraine, social businesses have more opportunities than conventional businesses. And you can use both the grant funds and you can use the other sources of financing. So I just wanted to focus more on the bright side. And I don't know when all this will be over, but the challenges, yes, we mentioned all that quite a few times. Digitization, yes. Online services delivery, yes. That is what we all need to learn how to do. And in addition, we should master the skills of remote work for our team members. Because, we are talking about external challenges, but there are internal challenges. The skills of working with your colleagues whom you do not see face to face anymore.
Дуже дякуємо, пане Артем. Дякуємо за те, що привнесли нотку позитиву і
Thank you, Artem, for
за це
bringing a glimpse of positive things.
творення нового.
Surely, developmental possibility is about creating something new. It's always about entering a new phase of development. Within the scope of the current crisis, the pandemics, I think the issue of access and accessibility of target audiences, consumers, is also of great importance for social enterprises. And in this regard, I'd like to ask our online speakers, online participants, maybe, and Nolan would join to tell her vision, her opinion. Dear Anne, would you, given that you are dealing with integration and reintegration of migrant women, maybe you could tell us more about the current challenges social enterprise is facing now in the current condition of economic turbulence and pandemics.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. We are a humanitarian NGO in Waterford in Southern Ireland. I have sent in some slides. We probably don't have time to share them, but I mean, people can access them later on. I suppose social enterprise is only one part of what we do. Most of our work is based around ensuring that people have access to human rights and that their basic needs are met. In times of COVID, this has been extremely challenging for people who live kind of in direct provision accommodation centres, that's migrants and asylum seekers. They include, about a third of the population in direct provision at the moment is children, and they are children under 12. Schools in Ireland have been closed since March, and this has been very difficult for parents to try and manage, to support, to comfort, and to provide information to their children. They have no social distancing spaces, no place to play. The women in particular, we would have engaged in social enterprise kind of pre-COVID, and we see social enterprise as a methodology for engaging with migrants and to give them access into the labour market here in Ireland. Unfortunately, due to status of many migrants, they are not eligible for employment at the moment. And that has added to the difficulties. So the women have been involved in creative industries, doing things like crafts and sewing and other things that are related to arts and performance arts and street art. During times of COVID, we diversified in that the women started to make masks for everybody in direct provision, first and foremost, to provide some level of personal protection. Materials were donated, and we believe in recycling everything. So we operate on a no fee, low fee basis. So they were kind of utilised during that time. The children are now back at school kind of since September, but we are still facing issues. I mean, we also got involved in the emergency response call through the local authorities. We provided translation services. We got public health information out in a number of languages. and we linked to all those other services as well. Now, for the migrants that are entitled to work, many of them have lost their jobs because they were in 0 hours contracts, or they were in precarious jobs, or working on the black economy. So that has been extremely difficult as well. So we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. Our biggest
Це
challenges, I would
ускладнює для нас
say, in terms
картину.
of social enterprise, and that is that
І безумовно
if
соціальне підприємство.
I suppose if there are any kind of incentives around social enterprise in Ireland at the moment, many migrants are not eligible for those incentives. So, for example, the local enterprise office probably would have, given out tokens for like 1,000, €1,500, but our migrants are not eligible for that. So we're looking for and working towards, having a level playing field and equitable access to whatever supports that there are out there. And what do we do about those? Because we were engaged so much in translation services during this emergency, we have decided that as part of our social enterprise, we're going to develop a localized language and translation service under social enterprise that will be manned and staffed and engaged with migrants that we already have here in Ireland, who have a number of languages. And we find that if we can get those trained up, that will be a nice enterprise and an opportunity for them to engage in the market. Carl, you mentioned earlier on, if you don't mind me saying, around the digital technologies and, the huge role that they have to play in moving forward from COVID. And, I would agree. But in principle, that's fine. But like if you live in a rural area and broadband is not accessible for everybody, or you're in a country where you don't speak the language of that country, in this case, English is not their first language. Many are not familiar with IT systems because they're coming from countries where communications and IT was not allowed. So how do we overcome some of those issues then, kind of going forward? And it's something I would like all the panel to think about. That when we are dealing with much more vulnerable communities and much more marginalized and disadvantaged communities, that we need to make consideration for the fact that they're not coming from a level playing field. We can't assume that people have access to IT. When their children were off school and the schools were providing homework supports online, like parents in direct provision couldn't access those because they didn't have the IT, they didn't have the technology to do that. Anybody that had a phone, it wasn't really an iPhone, and their I suppose their phone credit ran out very, very quickly. So that was something that we had to support them in, was to get them sponsored for phone credit, so they could access some of those supports. So I would just say that when we are discussing about social enterprise and a way forward, we see it as very much a very positive way forward. But we do want people across Europe to understand that not everybody is coming from the same level playing field, and to keep some of those considerations in mind. I will talk maybe a little bit later on about some of the challenges that we have kind of across Europe in general, where there is not a framework that kind of fits all. One size does not fit all. So that's all I will say for now, and hopefully we can engage again at a later stage.
Щиро дякуємо, пані Енна.
Thank you so much, and for sharing your experience and your vision and the experience of your organization.
Узагальнення та то проблема доступу та вразливих
Yeah, the
групах
problem
особливо
of
посилення
accessibility, particularly for vulnerable groups, enhancing these
зробити ці
accessibility
предмети
opportunities,
ковід, щоб вони не стали ще більш вразливими,
questions of
додати
how to
допомогти
make
їм
these
зберегти
vulnerable
хоча б той
people,
статус, в якому вони
like
є,
to
і
keep
тоді
them
можна
afloat, at least
говорити,
during
що
the
у нас
COVID
є
times,
основний
without letting them down completely, is probably among the topmost priorities for social businesses.
якщо ви на рівні Європи спостерігаєте,
Maybe you could further tell us about the general European processes. We already know the problem with migrants in Europe. Probably we share, Ukraine and you share the problem of employment. And I think during the COVID times, many smaller enterprises were not able to survive. Maybe you could mention some other features proper for European situation at the moment.
Well, I suppose that there are kind of three factors that Europe is kind of looking at. So that the first one is about obtaining funding, and there's supposed to be an ease of how that can happen, but we find that it's a very difficult process, and we find that if your client groups don't fit into particular boxes, then immediately we have no access at all. I think that there is a shortage, there is a lack of information and supports to, how do we access these funds? How do we access potential partners for these funds? You know, for a lot of people, migrants are a long way down the list on their priorities. And I'm sure that that's the case across many, many countries. And other disadvantaged groups, people with disabilities, people who are long-term unemployed, single-headed households, all of these kind of disadvantaged groups need additional supports. The funding is not out there at the moment to provide those supports. And I think that that's the first thing really that Europe has to look at. I mean, every year we kind of get reports on the underspend, and we're saying, well, how can you help us to access that funding? Nothing should be underspent. I mean, the budget is there and it's there for a reason. Other things around social economy and social enterprises, thematic guidance and, about increasing visibility. Again, I would say that our model is not a typical model in that we don't necessarily provide services or products for sale. It's for social responsibility, and it's to keep people afloat. It is about, our motto is that we save lives, we change lives, and we build communities. And we need additional supports to enable us to do this. Many people don't understand that, social enterprise, we're not necessarily there to make a profit. We are there to support people and for social profit. So any profit that is made will be ploughed back into the organization to provide technical skills to give people an opportunity to go forward and into the labor market.
Щиро дякую, пані Ен.
Uh, Thank you so much, dear Anne, for this insight, for your vision of the challenges that also social enterprises are facing in Europe. Uh, Now, together with us, Mr. Vitaly Buchniak from the Institute of Urban Development project. Maybe, Vitaly, you could add something what has already been mentioned at the level of cities, amalgamated communities, some more specific features to include. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, the previous speakers were really interesting and really comprehensive in their description. I would probably like to add a couple of words about what's happening at the urban level, at the level of cities. The whole rhythm of life of social enterprises in Ukraine is a bit at odds with what they have on social enterprises in Europe and elsewhere. Also because our social enterprises, with only some exclusions, are completely disconnected from the world economy. They never export anything. Yeah, there are exclusions, definitely. We have a couple of them. Nice enterprises that work in garment industry. They're able to supply international customers. But generally, if we speak about Ukraine, social enterprises, having one in Ukraine is already a big challenge. Reasons are multiple. Some of them are shared with regular commercial companies. Adds here lack of experience, lack of resources, poor accessibility of loans, all the way up to legislative hurdles. And this all really makes the whole business of social enterprise a challenge. ask any minister about social enterprise, you won't hear anything better than just general words about this is something about social dimension. If we go down to the local level, I think some key challenges, regardless of the pandemics we have, regardless of quarantine. So the key thing is we have to come to terms with what we have now. We have to understand that for the foreseeable future, there will be no return to what we had before this March. And with a view of that, with understanding of it, we need to go further, fostering better relations with local governments, with community leadership, community level administration. We have this administrative community based reform in Ukraine. Several communities unite into a bigger one. So we need to talk to new governments of such communities, engage them, try to make them commit for something of importance to you as social enterprise. Particularly as we are approaching the time of local elections in Ukraine. After election period is over, they won't be so vocal in their support. So grab them by the tongues and make them commit. I think that for many social enterprises, the local level of government, the municipal government will be the key anchor partner to work with. Anyway, donors have no limitless, bottomless pockets. At some point, we will have to look into our own pockets and that of our partners in Ukraine. Think of possibility of having less donor support, how it will affect your business, social business. So let's, fingers crossed, let's hope they will continue their support, but still. And the second point, you may not reasonably expect the state supporting social enterprises, social businesses in any meaningful way again in the foreseeable future. Yes, they promote this loan facility with reduced interest rates. They call 579, but well, in terms of accessibility, it's questionable. So again, don't look for the central government. Look at local administrations, local councils, local governments. Hopefully, after these local elections, there will be some change of their teams, and the new people will be more inclined to cooperate. Thank you, Vitaly, for this elaborate answer. We do hope, though, that it's not that bad as one might think, and even after the elections, the life will continue. You know, they even say in Ukraine, whatever the cataclysm, you will still have to toil your land. This is exactly the case. Still more that currently the decisions making process at the local level is stay in the domain of local communities with their new governments who have certain legislative framework and some tool sets and mechanisms at the local level again to make social enterprises survive. Probably we don't see, we've yet to see some substantial support from the central government. But well, at the moment we are living through the decentralization reform and related the institutionalization reform, which only complicates the matter. So we are living in interesting times indeed, which, as Svetlana has correctly mentioned, it should make us more mindful of our own health and mental health. You need to be stable and able. And I'd like to give the floor now to Alyona Kalibaba to hear her expert opinion. She's a social entrepreneur herself. She's got quite a number of years of experience under her belt. She was actively involved in designing accelerators across Ukraine. Please.
Не чути вас.
We don't hear you, don't hear you, don't hear you.
Не чути.
Скажіть, будь ласка, чутно мене зараз?
Чути
Uh, can you hear me now?
Супер, так, дякую. Насправді колеги вже все сказали, і дуже добре, що якраз
Actually, everything has been mentioned, I think, or nearly everything, particularly after Vitaly's words.
Я підприємець, 6 років ми працюємо в
And yes, I am a social entrepreneur. I've been working in Ukraine for 6 years. We have co-workings, creative spaces in Kiev and Lviv, and we are exactly the business, the social business that has faced these tremendous avalanche of issues with advent of the quarantine time. We had to cut on our services immediately. We are a classic hub meant to support all sorts of entrepreneurs with their problems. And at the beginning of the quarantine, we asked firsthand what kind of help we might offer them, what are the key concerns. And the first reactions were that we just don't know what to do. All sorts of problems arose, from what to do about the loan I was to attract, or you're just unhappily attracted before this quarantine. What to do if I cannot continue my regular business? Are there any chances of grant support? Social entrepreneurs really welcome this loan facility 579 with reduced interest, but they were disappointed to know that not everyone could really avail of it. So we switched to online consultations involving other guys to share their experience about new services to offer, how to retain staff, how to keep yourself afloat. We had several collaborative efforts. We also started offering like pro bono services, like flat rate rental of our space for some events of such social businesses. We allowed ourselves to offer customer searching possibility to the range of services we offered. Artem actually is right when he says that social enterprise is also, first of all, a business. And yes, at first glance, you might say, oh, yes, no, sorry, I cannot go online, I'm stuck. But even in this case, you need to just come down, sit down with your colleagues to review your business model to see in which direction to move. If you're not able to find way out, ask for advice from others, from us, from others. You can even ask for assistance. We are lucky in Ukraine to have quite a lot of opportunities to ask and be given this assistance. Another matter is that local governments also scratch their heads over how to help local social enterprises, small businesses. And I cannot but agree with Vitaly that many times local governments are not entirely clear, not out of the woods, with how to help social entrepreneurs, how to help vulnerable groups, how to expand the range of services of social importance, of social meaning.
Ми працевлаштовуємо людей з обмеженими можливостями. Ми робимо там вплоть до того, що ми робимо пандуси, ми можемо там вам з цим допомогти. Ми виробляємо таке. Тому що це можливість співпраці, про яку також говорили сьогодні, і той, хто стукає, йому завжди є двері, які відчиняються. Не всі відчиняються, на жаль, але завжди є двері, які відчиняються. Те, що я бачу зараз, класичний бізнес готовий до колаборації з соціальними бізнесами. І в Україні це дуже добре видно під час різноманітних акцій і ініціатив спільних бізнес, соціальний бізнес або бізнес з неприбутковими організаціями, або бізнес просто з ініціативами. Це перше. Друге, те, що є можливість для того, щоб отримати менторську допомогу, а це завжди добре і допомагає, коли на тебе можуть подивитися збоку. І те, що не стісняйтесь, постукайте в двері до ваших муніципалітетів, запитайте, якими проблемами вони зараз займаються, і чим ви можете як бізнес допомогти, або чи можете ви послуги, які ви пропонуєте, запропонувати також для того, щоб утримувати, наприклад, свою команду і продовжувати розвиватися. Це якщо дуже коротко, але я впевнена, що так, ситуація не буде змінюватися дуже швидко, і в такому стані ми будемо ще наступні 1 рік, я сподіваюся, але може бути і більше. І це нас всіх стимулює до того, щоб мислити швидко, і як в стартапах правильно було зазначено, говорять fail fast. Спробували, не вийшло, спробували щось нове, запропонували нову послугу. Дякую.
Щиро дякуємо, пані Альоно, за те, що поділилися і досвідом, і власним баченням викликів, які стоять перед соціальними підприємцями, і, зокрема, також і шляхами їх вирішення. І у нас сьогодні ще мало би бути ще одне велике питання, на яке ми частково вже відповіли. Кожен з експертів присутніх тут відповів так чи інакше про те, куди ж рухається соціальне підприємництво у світі. Якщо коротко підсумувати, то можна сказати і про диджиталізацію, про те, що ви вже говорили. Там можна сказати про збільшення мережування, що це тенденція, яка буде спостерігатися, про перехід в онлайн частково в онлайн. Перегляд, ось пані Альона казала про перегляд повністю документів, перегляд бачення діяльності, візії організації, тобто яким чином можна
Review of documents, review of vision, changing the survival tactics for businesses. Maybe someone would name a couple more things about possible future possibilities. So again, we mentioned the context, we tackled challenges, we spoke about prospects for the future. Maybe something was left beyond the discussion. Maybe someone would add something about the prospects of our social enterprise efforts. I don't know, in a year, in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, in Ukraine or abroad. May I ask Carol, who's responsible for policymaker for cooperation of traditional commercial companies and social enterprises and communities. Maybe you could give us some insight about the future.
Sure. From a European point of view,
Немає звуку.
we are currently working on a social economy action plan, which will be published in the end of next year. And this action plan has also a clear international dimension, so not only towards the EU as such. What I mean by international dimension is to reach out to the international organizations like the UN, like the ILO, OECD, and so on, but also and especially to strengthen the ties with neighboring countries like Ukraine. We already do this today because many of our funding instruments are already eligible for neighboring countries. And we specifically on social economy have also developed several instruments where also Ukrainian partners are present, such as the European Social Economy Regions project, where some Ukrainian partners were present. We are also in touch with, and now I have to I have to think about the name. It's a cluster in Ivansko-Frisk.
Це
It's a
кластер в
city in Ukraine. Do
Івано-Франковську,
I
це в
pronounce it well?
України.
I'm not.
Я не певен, чи
Okay,
правильно
and it's called a
вимовив
Teple
назву
Misto
міста.
platform. I don't know if you ever heard
Платформа
about it,
місто
but for us
називається.
it's a beautiful
З нашої точки
experience and
зору,
a
це
beautiful
чудовий
case
досвід, був
on how,
чудовий кейс,
from a very
приклад
local point of view,
того, як на
actors can be
абсолютно
combined with each other,
місцевому рівні
how local
учасники
government can
можуть
support, how
об'єднатися
social
між собою,
enterprises, regular
залучивши і
businesses can be
місцевий
supported,
уряд,
and
і
this all in
компанії,
a, let's say, a
і
regeneration
як це спільними
project.
зусиллями
For us,
може
this is
пройти
really
саме
like the
проект дійсно
future to develop in
регенерації.
every
І
city and
це
every town
такий
in Europe
напрямок на
such,
майбутнє
let's say,
вказує.
hubs of social innovation. I know it's way
Йдеться
more
про
than this, but
соціальні
maybe that's a good summary
інновації,
how to pronounce it. Just a space where citizens
скажімо
can come
так.
together, where
Тобто
citizens
про
can
створення
start
тих
an
просторів,
initiative.
де
It can be a
громадяни
social
можуть
business, but also
збиратися
just a civil
і
society
свої
business. So
ініціативи
basically one big
реалізовувати.
local common. I think we need
Таким
way more of
чином,
this kind of
створюючи
local
спільний
partnerships and
такий
local
вектор для руху.
cooperation, because this keeps the economic activity
І
locally.
це сприятиме
And there is
розвитку
nothing wrong
місцевої
with
економіки.
internationalization. I think that's
Нічого
very good to learn, to
немає
trade,
такого, що йде
but for a
супроти
social enterprise, it always should start
інтернаціоналізації
locally. That is the
економіки.
main
Це частина
characteristic.
одного
So that is
процесу.
where
Це
we
іноді
from the
засобних
European Commission want
характеристик.
to work a lot on to really
Ми
empower
в
local,
комісії
very
дуже
local actors
хотіли
to
би,
strengthen.
хочемо, власне,
One way to do it
працюємо
is to
над
work around
розвитком
clusters.
цього місцевого
Clusters are local
виміру.
partnerships of different
Створюємо
actors,
кластери
usually
місцеві
5 or 4
партнерства.
types of actors, so private
Правило,
businesses, civil
залучаються
society, the
4-5
government,
видів
but also research
учасників,
and
і
education
організації
or
громадянського
universities.
суспільства,
I
і
think that
навчальні заклади,
that is a
місцева
very important
влада.
lesson for the future,
І
and that
думаю,
will help
що
us
з
a lot
цього
also
можна
to
дуже важливі
build the
уроки на
capacity of
майбутнє
social enterprise.
виносити.
So the
З
skills
точки
part,
зору
as I
розвитку
already
можливості
heard in
соціального
many
підприємництва,
contributions
розвитку
today, but also
фабрики,
the
керівників,
digital
хто цим
capacity.
займається.
And thirdly,
І
also the
стосується і
sustainable factor,
загальної
where business is
спроможності
done in a
цифрової,
sustainable way, so in a
це
green way,
стосується
but also in a
забезпечення
social
сталості
responsible way,
розвитку
where, for
соціального
example, if I
підприємництва.
heard many discussions about accessibility,
Я
if we
чимало чув
develop projects
обговорення,
that
дискусії
projects
щодо
are accessible for all, and
доступності.
that's not only physical
І йдеться не лише про
accessibility, but
фізичну
also
доступність,
online
йдеться про
accessibility. For
онлайн
example, when you
доступність,
design a
наприклад.
website that
Коли ви
it's
розробляєте
suitable and
веб-сайт,
adaptable to
він
all
повинен
people
бути таким, щоб ним могли
and the specific
користуватися
needs of
люди
several
з
target
різними
groups and so on and so
особливими
further. I think
потребами, цільові
digital
групи
technologies
тощо.
might help a lot, but it's
Тому і в
not
цьому
only about
випадку
the
маємо це
digital.
питання. Я
That
думаю,
is a
що
very
цифрові
clear message. So
технології
this is a
допомагають.
very general approach, I know, but I
Це
think
дуже так
we don't
побіжно
have the time
окреслений
today to go
підхід,
very specific, but I'm
який
very
я
happy to
описав
provide
зараз,
you all
бо
the information
у
about
нас час
specific
обмежений,
projects.
це,
And I think from the European Commission point
але
of view,
думаю,
it's
що з
very
точки
important
зору
to say that we
Єврокомісії
want to
дуже
keep the
важливо
ties
наголосити на
with our
нашому намірі
beloved
і
neighboring
бажанні
countries, and specifically from
зберігати
a social
зв'язки з
economy point of view,
сусідніми
it's very
країнами,
important to
зокрема
keep
у
the
царині
connection
розвитку
between the social
суспільної і
economy
соціальної
partners across the
економіки,
border. Thank you
нашими
very
партнерами.
much.
Дуже дякую.
Дуже дякуємо вам, пане Карл, за експертну думку, за відповідь і за те, що поділилися з
Thank you,
нами.
Carol, for your response. Thank you for your input, and thank you for sharing your plans and prospects. And I would like to remind our viewers that we were talking about transborder networking and networking inside the countries and between the countries in Europe and also outside Europe, the neighboring countries, including Ukraine, which is neighboring to the European Union. And it was a very relevant comment on the inclusiveness of social enterprises as the phenomenon and improving access, not only physical access, but also access for the groups that have peculiar needs and providing everyone with the access to resources that would help to have social enterprises functioning. And I would like to give the floor to Ms. Anna Nolan, who works at the organization that is focused mainly on grassroots efforts. What do you think are the most what are the areas for social entrepreneurship development with highest prospects for your country, Ireland, and in general?
I think the most important thing
Як на
that we
мене,
have heard today is,
найважливіше це те, що ми
accessibility.
почули сьогодні, це якраз доступність.
Just to ensure that everybody is coming from the
Тобто,
same
щоб
space. But just
усі
while I think of
могли
it there
мати
now,
доступ до
another challenge that we have
однакового
faced
простору. І
is
ще
lack of
один виклик,
space.
який ми побачили в
Spaces that would
цей
have been
час, це
available
відсутність простору. Тобто
prior to
нам раніше
COVID, for
вистачало
community groups
простору
and
до
for small
коронавірусу.
business
Нам
and social
вистачало і
enterprise,
для малих
has now
підприємств,
been kind of
і для
commandeered
соціальних
to
підприємств.
accommodate,
І зараз
maybe office workers who have
нам
to
потрібно
require extra
розміщувати
space
також
to
і
social distance.
офісних
So
робітників,
very
тому
much
що треба
again, we
десь
don't have the
цілі
same access
групи
to those
спільнота
spaces
зараз
anymore. So
втрачають
that's something
можливості,
that we
тому
need to
що
be
у нас
looking at as well
зменшується
when we are moving forward. I
зменшуються
fully agree,
можливості,
Carl,
ми
with
не
what you
можемо
were saying
забезпечити цю
about
безпечну
the
відстань
importance
між
of the digital
робітниками.
and
І,
making sure that it's
звісно, також
available to
потрібно
everybody.
зробити так, щоб цифрові
I
інструменти були
suppose
доступні для усіх.
what we need to do, and something that
Як на
has
мене,
really
що
been
ми повинні
positive
зробити,
about
і в
COVID,
чому я
there has been a
впевнена з
shift in
точки
the
зору
value
коронакризи, це
and
те,
the
що у
thinking
нас
of the
змінилися
value of kind of
цінності
social
і
enterprise and civil
цінності
society.
також
I think
і
for
для
the first
соціальних
time ever,
підприємств, і для громадянського суспільства в
community
цілому.
groups
Мені
and
здається,
community
що
businesses
вперше
come to the fore,
різні
because I know
групи
the
у
situation here in
суспільстві
Ireland
вийшли
is that
на передову, тому що
there has been a huge
в
reliance on
Ірландії
communities and volunteering coming
ми
forward
зараз
to
значною
provide
мірою
meals for the
покладаємося на
homeless,
волонтерів в
supports
громадах,
to
які
people living on
допомагають,
their own in
наприклад,
rural areas.
безхатченкам,
All
які
of those
підтримують
emergency
людей в
response
сільській
type
місцевості, і
initiatives
вони реагують
have
якраз
all
на
come
передові
actually from
потреби.
the community and voluntary sector.
Тобто у нас
So
зараз
it's
більш активно
acknowledging
працюють
that and
волонтери і
maybe looking at
активізувалася
that as
робота в
well as a
громаді.
way forward for social
А
enterprise
також
in how can we
мені здається,
formalize
що
some of
це
those
може
initiatives
допомогти і соціальним
so that we are
підприємствам,
better
і ми
prepared for
можемо
anything
подумати, як
that
можна
is coming down the
формалізувати
line to us.
роботу цих
I know that we are
підприємств для
facing
того,
into
щоб
a
ми
second
були
wave of
підготовлені. І
coronavirus here in Ireland, and we're
я
getting
знаю, що
ready
в
for
Ірландії ми
a second
наближаємося
lockdown,
до другої хвилі. Ми вже
unfortunately,
чекаємо
at the moment.
другого
So,
повноцінного
but we are better
карантину,
prepared, and I
і
think that's
ми вже
something,
зараз
it's an
краще
opportunity to
підготовлені. І як на
formalize that
мене, це
voluntary
вже можливість
effort in going
формалізувати
forward.
цю
And
роботу
if that can happen
волонтерів і
through social
їхні зусилля.
enterprise,
І якщо
because
це
I know
може
that we
зробити
ourselves
формат
prepared
соціальних
hygiene packs
підприємств,
for people
адже
who
ми
are migrants who are
підготували
homeless or at risk of becoming
спеціальні
homeless,
набори,
for people who have
гігієнічні
lost their
набори
jobs and
для
couldn't pay for
безхатченків, а
their
також
rental
для людей,
accommodation.
які, наприклад,
There's
втратили
an
роботи
opportunity.
і не можуть заплатити оренду, то ми для них
That's something
пропонуємо
that we
додаткові
probably should look
можливості.
at. I think
І мені
in
здається,
terms
що
of
це те, чим зараз
a
потрібно
social enterprise
займатися.
going forward, we will be
І з
focusing
точки
on
зору
the language
соціальних
and
підприємств,
translation
ми
services
також
because we feel that
будемо
that's a huge need across
орієнтуватися
the
і
board
на
for
послуги
health and other
перекладу і
information services. So yes,
задоволення
that's
мовного
kind of
бар'єру,
where we
тому
would
що
be putting
це
our biggest
інформування, і
efforts
воно зараз
immediately.
дуже важливе.
Thank
Це
you.
те, над чим ми зараз будемо працювати безпосередньо.
Пані Ен, величезне дякуємо вам за те, що
Thank you,
поділилися.
Anne, very much for sharing your vision. And many things you mentioned, if not everything you mentioned, is actually relevant in terms of Ukrainian reality as well. The work with those who were made redundant and also support uh, to social enterprises in terms of their outreach, and also creation of additional services to those who need them with regard to COVID challenges and for those who have found themselves in complicated life circumstances. Thank you very much. And, now I would like to ask Svetlana, who is an analyst in social impact, what do you think are the areas with the highest prospects for social entrepreneurship with regard to what you have already mentioned? Well, we have said a lot indeed. And I would like to add on to what my colleagues just mentioned. Speaking of social entrepreneurship, we all remember that there is this scheme. On one hand, you have civil society, nonprofits, and on the other extreme, you have conventional businesses. And social enterprises are somewhere in the middle. And quite often, at least in my point of view, this traditional scheme is rather polarized, and many organizations are actually on both sides of the extreme, and they are both business and social and civil society. And I think that in future this polarization would go down. There will be more organizations that would have social mission and that would use different mechanisms, in, including conventional tools and models to attain their goals. We would like to have this kind of future that would mean the increase in number of social enterprises. From the point of view of social impact, and it was discussed many times today with even the separate session dedicated to it. In my opinion, social impact would become of greater importance for social entrepreneurs, for all those who work with social entrepreneurs, for owners, for beneficiaries, for all stakeholders. And social impact would become more of an imperative rather than being an option just for some projects or social entrepreneurs. I believe that it would be integrated into the organizational architecture, and this will be yeah, ubiquitous in all the activities of the enterprise function, social enterprise function. As the purpose of social enterprise is to solve the problem, and the way we proceed with the solving of this problem is of critical importance. So I think that this is something that we would focus on, and I think that the social entrepreneurs could listen to the session that was today in the morning. I'm sure you may have it recorded. And when the social entrepreneurs are lost, we are losing civil society. And we want both civil society and social entrepreneurs winning. And in order to see that happen, the journey of efforts is required. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG number 17, yeah, that is something that would be of use in attaining those goals. Thank you, Svetlana. Thank you for your answer, and thank you for giving more details to the prospects. So now we have the clear picture of social entrepreneurship in the future. Artem, I saw that you were very much anxious about sharing something with us, and you are the leader of the organization that is engaged in school social entrepreneurship. What is your vision, and what are the recent trends for for it? Well, Oksana, you probably got my vibes because this is exactly what I wanted to share. Well, I don't know whether it's going to be 10 years from now or maybe longer, but I believe that social entrepreneurship will become the new normal. This will become the big trend, and it will become the golden standard of doing business. And I will not make a forecast over here with regard to the timeline, but I'm sure that that is bound to happen. And I have the experience of teaching in various countries, and what's curious? When you explain it to a successful businessman what social entrepreneurship is, it's quite difficult for him or her to get it. And they think that why do you need this social enterprise? The business is more for making money. And to change this kind of deeply entrenched vision, it takes quite an effort. And this is my personal challenge. So if you have some kind of life hacks, I'd be happy to learn from you. But when you work with youth, when you work with the school children, with students, and when you explain to them why you want to have the social business instead of conventional one, it is intrinsic in them. If we are creating something in this world, it only makes sense to have something that is of use and of benefit to the others. And I understand that these children will grow up one day and they will start their own businesses. And I don't know whether this notion itself will survive. And if we have all the businesses being social enterprises, they might not be called social enterprises anymore. But that's just a lot of deliberation. What's behind it? It's the fact that those school children are already thinking about becoming entrepreneurs. They feel that there is more freedom right now, and this path is more attractive than when I was at school. So this trend is very well pronounced, and the teams will be established. You know, this is the wave that is just in the early stages, and you know, at some point they will be able to do business legally, and I believe that that was a good great social one. Thank you for sharing your expert opinion. And now, this topic, youth and the children, yes, they are our future, and they will be the carriers of this new ideology when social becomes the new normal, and our becomes new normal. And you know, this is our task to lay the groundwork. And all of us, for all who are present here, for all those who are with us online, for all those who have their social enterprises, or those who are only thinking about it, you play a role in it. And I would like to give the floor now to the Executive Director of the Ukrainian Social Academy, who is sure to have something to say. And you know that you are reading with Ashoka, and you are conducting studies. So I'm sure that you have something more to mention
Дякую.
with regard to where we headed. Thank you. I'll try to be brief. Speaking of prospects for the next few years to come, 20, 40 years, and I'm not a futurologist myself, I'm sure that most of you would agree that this crisis would only strengthen the trends that were present before the COVID-19, and digitalization, flexible working hours, remote work, all that existed before coronavirus, but now it is accelerated fast track. And I would like to remind you that the crisis that we have right now, I showed it very clearly that the businesses that are doing business the way they want it, but not the way the customers want, will not survive. And according to the results of our study, I mentioned 18% of entrepreneurs said that their revenues went up, and they even employed new people, and they are very much customer oriented. And this is for all businesses without desegregation, social or conventional. Ukrainian business is a micro business. Social entrepreneurship in Ukraine is mostly micro businesses, but that's a new model. That is the change of the outlook, and the business is in transition right now from being closed hierarchical system to the local system. And that is quite their normal way of to proceed. And you know, if we recall David and Colorado, I think that that's exactly the same. We'll have new companies, craftsmen who will prevail. And speaking of the prospects, some people say that what Orta mentioned would happen this century, and there will be no difference. And any brand that wants to be innovative and that wants to be trendy has to be social. And you know, that is the opinion that is shared by many. And speaking of social businesses and the future for social businesses, I believe that those would survive which are mission driven, the ones that are united around their mission. And Alona Kalibaba also mentioned that there are some challenges. like the is with the human resources, but you can also always help with this kind of issues. But you need to have the mission to be united around it. And in that regard, we as the Social Academy see our mission as the accelerators program. This year, despite the crisis, we were able uh, to have new students joining our accelerator. Besides, we are trying to find people with some potential, and I'm sure that we will hear about social businesses from civil society. And we started the pilot project, the management of social innovations. We have 30 CSOs that have their business ideas. It means that they are mission driven and want to start businesses. And something that we are not talking about faith-based organizations like Caritas. I think that these are the organizations that have their mission very clearly stated, and they are working not for the sake of money; they are working for the sake of their mission. So we decided to go there and offer financing also to the faith-based organizations. And I believe that in next 2, 3, or 4 years, we will see the outcomes as the crisis speeds up the processes. We are experimenting with blockchain right now and how it could be integrated in social entrepreneurship in Ukraine. Thank you, Petro, for outlining the areas that are with the highest prospects for Ukraine. And yes, mission-driven organizations, it's very important to support them and to lead them, and also to support them by means of supervision and accelerators. And now I'd like to pass on to Alona Kalibaba. Alona, do you have anything to add as the CSO of social enterprise?
Я
I know
перепрошую,
that
та
you
вона
also have
пішла.
accelerators. I'm sorry, Alona left. Then I would like to give the floor to Mr. Vitaly. Vitaly, I would like to hear from you some optimistic forecasts for social entrepreneurship development. We've been discussing challenges a lot today, and we've talked about challenges during the past hour. But let's talk about silver lining. What are the prospects for the development? Where social
Дякую
entrepreneurship
дуже.
added
Тут така
Ukraine in
честь
Ukraine
завершувати,
and
але
globally?
я не знаю, ви
Thank
на мене
you.
образитесь, бо я
I
напевно,
don't
що не
know.
буду поділяти
Maybe
оптимізму попередніх промовців про
I
те, що
am
бізнеси
not that
майбутнього
optimistic as
будуть
my
більш
colleagues.
соціалізуватися. І поясню
You know,
свою думку. Для
I
мене,
do not. I
ну,
believe
якби
that all the businesses
бізнесів
connected
соціальних
ones
не
will
ставатиме
become more
менше, їх
social.
ставатиме більше,
I
це
don't think that
однозначно.
there
Але це
will
не
be
означає,
the
що це
drop in
буде
the
за
number
рахунок
of
традиційних
social
бізнесів,
businesses, but I think that
чи
would
це
not
буде за рахунок
be at the
громадських
expense
організацій.
of
Це безумовно феномен
conventional
соціального
businesses.
підприємництва, це щось на
I think
межі
that social
та бізнесу і
entrepreneurship
громадського
is on
сектору.
the
Воно
edge
буде рости,
between
та але
business and
бізнес залишиться
civil
бізнесом. І
society, but
те,
business
що буде
will
соціальне
remain business.
підприємництво, воно
So I
має
believe
і
that there
матиме
will
межі
be
росту
social
в
enterprises,
силу кількох
more of them,
факторів. Я от зараз на свою думку, і їх назву. Перший це
there
людина, це людська мотивація. Ми
activities will
забуваємо
change a
або,
bit
можливо,
because
згадуємо в інших контекстах
we have the
Абрахама Маслоу, його
motivation
піраміду.
factor,
Це,
and
не хочу сказати аксіома, але
the
це
Maslow's
концепція перевірена
pyramid
часом. І
is
якщо ми
the
говоримо про
concept
соціальне підприємництво,
that
то воно не
proves the
знаходиться
right
десь в
growth
основі цієї
price.
піраміди. В
And
основі піраміди якраз знаходяться звичайні
we know
підприємці,
what
які
you
хочуть
have
забезпечити
at
собі
the bottom level of
нормальне
this
життя,
pyramid,
безпеку, а
and
потім вже
you can find their
самостверджуватись. І це вже є
conventional
вищий
business
щаблі
people who
піраміди.
simply want to make their
Тому
living, they
людська
want to earn
мотивація, вона
money,
така,
they want to
що
make
для
profit.
того, щоб
So
займатися
the human nature
підприємництвом
is
соціальним, треба мати певний рівень
as follows.
цієї
In order
мотивації,
to
певний рівень
become the
свідомості.
social
І,
entrepreneur, you need to have
так, то може
this
цинічно
way
буде
of
звучати, але
mindset.
люди без освіти, Люди без якихось
maybe it's cynical of
можливостей,
me to
без
say,
капіталів,
but
без
people
доступу до
without
капіталу, вони
education,
не можуть
people
займатися цим
without
підприємством, або воно буде на дуже базовому рівні, і це
without
зовсім не
access
про
to
ті
financial
масштаби, про які
resources,
от
they
ми сьогодні
cannot
говорили.
do social
Тобто,
business,
якщо
or
говорити
maybe they
про
can do it, but
великий бізнес,
at a
то
very low
він не буде
scale.
соціальним. Він буде соціалізуватися. Оця
And big
концепція
businesses, they will
такого
not
імпакт
become
впливу,
social.
вона звичайно
Yes,
просувається.
this
Великими
impact,
корпораціями буде ставати більше, але це швидше
social
в розрізі
impact is
корпоративної
becoming more
соціальної
popular,
відповідальності, але
and
не
yes,
соціальної
this is
підприємства.
something taken into
Друге,
consideration by big corporations,
економіка.
but that's more of
Якщо ми говоримо про
corporate social
капіталістичну економіку, ну
responsibility.
от вона працює як працює.
And the
І є
economy
прибутки, і ти
functions
або
as
отримуєш
it
прибуток, і ти
did.
працюєш, або ти
So
не отримуєш прибуток,
it's
ідеш в
either
мінус
you make
і
profit or
залишаєшся
you
ринок.
make
Ми також
loss
забуваємо, звідки
and
багато
you exit
соціальних
the market.
підприємств отримують свої стартові
So
капітали. Це
many
програми
social
донорів великі.
enterprises get
А
their
як донори великі
seed
формують свої
equity
бюджети,
with
а вони
the
формують їх
donors,
від
and
бізнесу і від
the
держави.
donors
А держави
have
отримують
their
з
budgets
податків
from
великі бізнеси
businesses
ці
and
бюджети. Тому
from the
цей
government.
кругобіг добра в
And
природі, він якби має місце і
then the
він не буде
government
змінюватись. Тому
gets
якщо ми
proceeds from
соціалізуємо
the
весь
taxes
бізнес,
paid.
то
So this is
ну,
the circle.
це трошки утопія, і
And if we
система не
have
буде
all
працювати.
businesses going
В
social,
силу
that
тих
is
причин, що я сказав. Ну і ще
some
один
sort of
такий, як для мене, ну я
utopia,
не знаю,
in
можливо,
my
це дуже
opinion.
такий базовий приклад. Це
And
споживачі
one
і
more
гаманці. Вони
example,
завжди голосують
the
гаманцями, завжди
consumers and
хочуть
their
максимально
wallets.
якісні
The
і
consumers
дешеві
always
товари. А
vote with their
продукція
wallet
соціальних
and
підприємств
with
вона не
their
є в
money. They
дешевому
want to have
сегменті, вона є в
high
середньому
quality
сегменті,
products
тому
and
що
products that
ну
are
навіть якщо
affordable.
так порівняти,
And
та вона є
social
якісна, але це не є
enterprises
базовий
produce
сегмент. Тому
products
вона
that
завжди є
are
трошки
not
дорожча
in
за
the
ну,
lowest
ті,
price
що є,
segment.
скажімо, на нижніх полицях супермаркетів,
So
тому
it's a bit
вона
more
розрахована і на
expensive
і на
than
певних
the lowest
споживачів.
price.
От,
And
тому
respectively, the
я не знаю, чи
consumers
я
of different
напевно, що я не дуже оптимістично завершую,
I'm
але
sorry for
соціальний
not
бізнес
being
він буде
that
рости, та
optimistic
якщо
as you wanted me to be.
це якби трошки
But
додасть оптимізму.
responding
Однозначно
to
буде
your
рости, його
question,
ставати тим більше, але це така буде
is
певна,
that
певний
there will be
сегмент
more
невеликий
social enterprises in the future,
в
but
бізнесі. Дякую.
there will be still conventional businesses working, and that will be just part of enterprises. Thank you for your forecast, and I believe that it was optimistic in a way, and we were sharing even the things the futurologists usually share, and we are trying to make projections as analysts today. I would like to thank all our panelists for taking part in this session. I would like to thank you for your insights. I would like to thank you for your inputs, and I would like to thank you for your positive assessment of the challenges, and also I would like to thank you for answers to the questions of how to solve the challenges. And I would like to give the floor to the coordinator of social business in UA project, Dmitro Havriluk, for closing remarks. Good afternoon, dear friends. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Summing up today's conference, I would like to thank first and foremost all speakers who were with us today, starting from very morning. And this is the first online conference for Ukrainian Philanthropist Forum and for social business in UA. I would like to thank you for your input. And as my colleagues Vitaly Bakhyak and Artem Karnensky mentioned, regard to the prospects of social entrepreneurship. Being the coordinator of the social business project, I saw that the social business is now becoming long-lasting trend and fact that has to be taken into consideration. We also discussed the opportunities for the local authorities to cooperate with the social businesses, and there are some prospects in it. And I would like to add on to what Vitaly Bakhnak said. I believe that social entrepreneurs will have some barriers to overcome, and there will be some misunderstanding and misperception from those who are still sharing some Soviet views. But I'm sure that social entrepreneurs, if they are actually based on grassroots support, they would be able to change the opinion of the local governments. The example of my colleagues from our colleagues from Ireland shows that when there is a bottom-up approach, when there is a grassroots initiative, we see that the impact is only higher and the local governments are ready to help. I would like to thank all of the moderators of the sessions. Oksana Boyko, you are uh, heading the School for Social Work, and I know that your School of Social Work had piloted one of our training courses, and I know that it is still trained at the School for Social Work, and that is the role model for other colleagues, and it means that the education sector is ready to work on that. I would like to thank colleagues from East Europe Foundation, and you are working in your particular niche, school social entrepreneurship. I would like to thank Kharkiv Professional Development Foundation for their initiative. Given that our conference is coming to an end, we should cheer up anyway because social entrepreneurship is supported by Ukrainian Social Academy, School of Me, Social Entrepreneurship Forum, and you see the logos of all our partners, Chasopus, Future Development Agency, Pro Bono Club Ukraine, Promise, our partners, Scilab Ukraine, Kharkiv Professional Development Fund, and the foundations from Zaporizhia and Kryvyi Rih, the Union of Social Entrepreneurs of Ukraine. You know, all these organizations are the advocates of social entrepreneurship. So, those of you who are just establishing, who are just starting your social enterprises, you can learn from these guys how to start your business, and you can also find information about them, and I'm sure that this might be interesting to the representatives of local governments and as well as to academia and journalists. And before I will announce the winners of our prizes, I would like to thank those who made this conference possible from the technical point of view. I would like to thank Ukrainian Philanthropist Forum team who are behind the scenes, but their contribution is very valuable. Lesya Yaroshenko and Polina Nyukhina, the head of Ukrainian Philanthropist Forum, Liza Chernova, the assistant of the project, Svetlana Sidoruk, Yulia Devachkina, project coordinator Katerina Vorobyova, and our viewers. You know, these guys did a great job today. And I would like to thank our colleagues and friends from the EU delegation to Ukraine. I would like to thank Irina Ubres and Sergeyenko. I would like to express gratitude for the fact that when we had a white paper discussion, we had the representatives from the Ministry of Economy, and I would like to thank them for speaking up. And finalizing my closing remarks, I would like to announce the winners of our prizes from social enterprises. The first prize from my Kadri Ukraine goes to this prize goes to Alena Danilova. Alena Danilova, get in touch with us. We will send you this prize. The next prize, the bag goes to Irina Fomenko, who is the head of Kharkiv Professional Development Foundation. So, Irina, this is the bag that is on the way to you. The gem goes to the colleague of our project, Oksana Music. Oksana Music, this gem is on the way to you. The board game that is supposed to develop logic thinking. And this is for Olga Rubrikovich. And the Energizer, the tea blend from Trava.ua goes to Mr. Yuri Shapoval. Sum it all up. Social entrepreneurship is still based on bottom-up approach, and social business in UA doesn't go anywhere. So you can use our website, and it is available to social entrepreneurs. You can promote your enterprises there, and you can find co-thinkers on that website. Just speak up and make yourselves known on the map of Ukrainian social enterprises. If you're wondering how to register your social enterprise, if you are wondering how to find financial opportunities, if you are wondering what are the resources available, you can check our guides, and it will be available even after the end of our project. And I would like also to pay your attention to the bank of ideas that is also available on our platform. You can use it, you can analyze data, and I'm sure that those tools would be useful to you. I would like to say that social entrepreneurs who are just hesitant about starting their own business, well, go ahead. And I would like to finish with the motto that is used by our colleagues. Let's move forward together. Moving forward together. So we are moving forward together for the sake of social entrepreneurship, but just keep the safe distance.